faith to day-to-day living and relationships to our family, our work, and our view of ourselves. Father Nicholas is the priest at St. John the Divine Greek Orthodox Church in Jacksonville, and Dr. Roxanne is a licensed clinical psychologist who uses her extensive training in private practice. Questions are welcome by calling 855-237-2346. That's 855-237-2346. Here now is Father Nicholas and Dr. Roxanne.
Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Live with the Louhs. We are so grateful that you're joining us on this Tuesday, April 2nd. Such a pleasure to have all of you with us. And tonight I'm joined by my lovely wife and co-host, Dr. Roxanne Louh. And if you're new to Live with the Louhs, it is a show that merges both faith and psychology. And our hope is that it gives you some practical principles to live by in your everyday life. So again, thanks so much for being with us. Just before we begin tonight's topic, I do want to invite all of you to stay connected to us through our many social media platforms. As we share this every single Tuesday, we are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, all under the headings of The Louhs. And that last name is spelled Louhs. And we also have all of our sermons archived on our Louhs YouTube page. And we encourage you, do us a favor, subscribe to this channel. It allows, just the way the algorithms kind of work, it allows it to be much more seen by many more people. And our hope and our prayer, I think that we oftentimes talk about, Roxanne, is just the importance of casting the net as far as we can to try to make a difference, to share Christ's light with the world. And so your subscription to that helps us so much. And also we invite you to subscribe to our daily inspirational messages. We have so many people that receive these messages. And I know we talked about this last Tuesday, Roxanne, but how grateful we are for those of you that even respond or share those messages on your social media platforms. This helps us out tremendously because not only does it allow us to continue to share those messages with more and more people, but we have no idea what people are going through and how important those messages may be in someone that you know or someone that's in your friend group, what they may be going through. So much for doing that as well. If you want to subscribe to those messages, go to our website at thelouhs.com/subscribe. That's thelouhs.com/subscribe. And all you have to do is simply put in your email address, and every morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, you will receive that day's daily inspirational message. And we're so excited. You know, I was talking to Melinda Johnson, who is the president and CEO of Ancient Faith, earlier today via text messaging, and she was just sharing with us some exciting news about how, by God's grace, how amazing the book sales of our new book, 6 Hours, 7 Lessons, are doing. It's really extraordinary, Roxanne. And I know that for us, all of the proceeds from this book, as you all know, we've shared this on many occasions, go to the American Cancer Society and to our local church. But it's just so powerful to know that people are benefiting from the book. So the book just came out about a week and a half ago and already doing very, very well. If you are interested, you can find out more about the book on Ancient Faith. You can just go to store.ancientfaith.com. And the book is entitled 6 Hours, 7 Lessons, and it chronicles the 6 hours that the Bible reveals that Christ is on the cross, and the 7 extraordinary life principles that he shares with all of us on that cross. So that I like to tell it in many ways, on Christ's darkest day, he was thinking about you and he was thinking about me. And he shares these 7 statements that I think are just life principles to live by. We've handled them from both a faith and psychology perspective, like we did with our first book, Renewing You. So you can find out all about it by going to store.ancientfaith.com. It's right there on the main homepage. Again, 6 hours and 7 lessons. And as always, we invite you to join the conversation tonight, especially on tonight's topic. I'm sure that there are many people that are impacted by the topic that we're going to talk about. And it is really a continuation of a topic that we had last April. And you can join the conversation. If you have a question or comment, feel free to do so at 1-855-237-2346, 1-855-237-2346, or email us a question during the live broadcast of our show by emailing me at ask@ancientfaith.com. That's ask@ancientfaith.com. So friends, let's get started. You know, last April we began a topic that is so near and dear to our hearts, and also happens to be the month that is dedicated to Autism Awareness Month. And we wanted to dedicate this show not only to follow up with our dear friend, Dr. Lisa Liberatore, on how Michael is doing, her amazing son, and their amazing ministry that they have up in New York, But I do wanted to share with you before why autism is so important for us to talk about. I don't know if you're aware of this, friends, but 2% of our population, or about 5.4 million people, are on the autism spectrum disorder. That's an extraordinary amount of people. Did you know that the cost for families with autism spectrum disorder is over $60 billion? And to add to that, many people we're seeing much more of that impacted, and parents and families are looking at how to not only be much more aware of autism and how to help their child who may be on the autism spectrum disorder, but also as churches and people that are in nonprofit organizations, how we can better minister to their needs. So as I mentioned earlier, we're so happy to have our dear friend, Dr. Lisa Liberatore, to be on our show this evening. She was on our show last April, and we just love having her, especially on this as we speak about autism. And just to remind all of you about the amazing work that she's doing, Dr. Lisa, along with her husband, Dr. Dimitri, were inspired to do a ministry because of their autistic son named Michael. And they would found two nonprofit organizations. One is called Love Michael. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. In U.S. Autism Homes. And both of them stepped away from Dr. Lisa actually stepped away from her private practice after 25 years to really dedicate her life to helping those that were on the autism spectrum. And so, Dr. Lisa, as always, I know you're unable to be with us through video, but you are through audio. Welcome to Live with the Louhs.
Thank you, Father Nick, and thank you, Roxanne.
So, Dr. Lisa, we so enjoyed our conversation with you last time you were on the show, as did so many of our listeners. We had so many people reaching out, sharing their own personal stories and journeys with their child or adult child with autism. So I'd love to hear an update, though. Tell us, how is Michael doing?
Well, I'm happy to say Michael's doing great. And I think that I hope that my journey basically can be a help to others. That's really been my goal. And I always felt that if it's this hard for Dimitri and I, how difficult would it be for other people? Because we do have so many resources, through our networks. We're both physicians for many years, and Michael's doing great, but it's been definitely a journey. So
let me ask you, Lisa, just to kind of follow up on that question, is as you look at the amount of knowledge that is available now with those who are on the autism spectrum disorder, I mean, and also looking at how where you guys began, you and your husband, to where you are now, I mean, to a young parent who has a child who's on the autism spectrum, I mean, who obviously maybe going through, like you at that time, maybe through a myriad of emotions, what are some words that you would just encourage them with, tonight as they're listening, to just kind of help them and to guide them through this? Because you've really used something that really a blessing in Michael to really create a transformational ministry for many people.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, Michael is 26 years old now. He was born in 1997. Mm-hmm. And at that time, it was suddenly everybody was, starting to hear, or there was a little bit of a buzz about mm-hmm. this rise in this previously unusual diagnosis. So in 1980, they said the diagnosis was 1 in 10,000. Now that's probably for many, many reasons. Mm-hmm. They didn't really categorize things to the extent that it is now. And when Michael was born, it was suddenly 1 in 136. Mm-hmm. But I still found very little information and very little knowledge from my pediatrician and from many other healthcare providers. Mm-hmm. And now I feel like there's just so much more, certainly much more awareness, early diagnosis, and I feel like the help that parents are getting in early intervention and even within the school system at a very early age is just so much better. And I would be very optimistic mm-hmm. that all the advances, especially in technology, are really helping the children at those early ages. I mean, I could talk just even about speech, for instance. Mm-hmm. The three pillars of autism, the three challenges that kind of everybody has in order to make the diagnosis, on that spectrum, and it's different for different people, but everybody has a difficulty with communication, difficulty with socialization, and a difficulty with change. And so really craving more structure and more rigidity to change. In the communication part, so many individuals on the spectrum are not very verbal, but the technology now with the augmentative communication, using all kinds of software to help communicate the needs and the wants, doesn't replace verbal. It actually helps verbal communication. But that type of sophisticated technology did not exist when Michael was younger. It's pretty remarkable to see in the younger children.
I'd love to kind of just, speak about it, at different stages in Michael's life, from his, very young adolescent age to now his young adult age, the differences that you saw and were able to kind of, the tools that you were able to use. We do have a caller who's called into our show. So hello, Nadia, welcome to Live with the Louhs.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lisa Liberatore. My question is, if the autism diagnosis was delayed until middle elementary school, how does that impact the prognosis? And I'll give you a little bit more details about this situation. I know this family, they're very affluent. The child was born, a boy, and he was the family was so, overwhelmed that the child was almost 2-3 years old and could hardly communicate, and they thought it was cute. There were times where they had in and out speech therapists, they had in and out the babysitters. Every time the child would have a tantrum, they will immediately dismiss that. She's not good enough for us. Let's get another one and another one and another one. And the years went by. The child at this point, he is almost 11 years old. He is enrolled in a Montessori school, has a therapist sitting next to him in the classroom practically every single day, and of course another one waiting at home. But still, I don't think there is progress. Still, the child wants to have a structured environment. The child doesn't like changes. He has difficulty communicating other than the immediate family and an older sister. And it seems, I don't know. When I heard that you will be on this program, I wanted to tune in and find out if it's diagnosed late, what can it be done for this child? Because the family would do anything. They are very affluent. They will spend as much as possible. Yeah. But what I hear is the child is not improving. So what is your answer?
Dr. Lisa, I'd love to hear your comments on that.
First of all, there's a phrase that's used among parents of autistic children is, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. And that's because everybody is so unique. The spectrum is so vast. You have somebody who's not very verbal, really, really, really struggles. And then you have somebody like Elon Musk who, says that he's on the spectrum. So autism is quite different in different people. This is not a race. It is not a sprint. It is a marathon. And so I would never say there's no progress. The progress may be very, very slow, and then all of a sudden there's kind of a breakthrough. The breakthroughs for Michael, in our experience, has been when we really focused on the things that he loved. It's so important to try to find the things that bring joy and to double down on those. So maybe, maybe sitting in a classroom is not the thing that brings the individual joy, but maybe he excels in sports or athletics. You guys know that Michael found a tremendous talent in rowing, for instance, which was only through seeing his brother row. So for this family, that's trying everything. I can relate to that. We tried so many things, and that's what you do. Any parent does that. Any parent is trying whatever they can to help their child. But when you see your child happy, that is really what you want to double down on. I mean, that's really been my experience, and that's how I helped. That's how we helped Michael. We saw most improvement is when we really looked to what he was showing us. He was happy rather than what we might have thought would bring, happiness.
So prognosis is not so affected by the late diagnosis as much as it is, just the journey for all kids in terms of finding something that they truly love, instead of trying to throw them into the environment that the cookie cutter environment that everybody, every kid soars in, is what I hear you saying.
Yes, and even those who are specialists in the field, who've been working in the field for a long time, sometimes they don't have all necessarily the answers. Parents really come with their own gut instinct on things. I mean, that's been our experience. Example, Michael could not add 1 + 1 until he was 14 years old, and I said, I don't understand. He's so smart. He can figure out how to take apart something, put it together. How can he not add 1 + 1? And they tried the same way, putting a little dot over the one, over the number, and then say, okay, add these 2 dots. And then one day we went by Kumon, which is a like an after-school program. And I said, do you ever work with anybody with special needs? And the gentleman said, everybody has potential. And he looked right at Michael and he said, Michael, you have tremendous potential. My name is Mr. Lee. And he goes, leave him with me. I felt like I was something out of a movie,
Wow.
And I tell you, and so I left him and he tested him. He gave him 2 little booklets, a reading book and a math book. And he came back and he said, okay, this is where he is. This is what I need you to do. I need you to take him every day. He has a different booklet. Just let him do it himself. You just time it and grade it. And bring him 2 times a week. Well, I have video. Within 2 weeks, he was adding in his head. I said, Mike, what's 4 + 9? 13. What's 20 + 6? 26. And, I showed it to I ran to his school, to the principal, and I said, you're not going to believe this. This is a miracle. And she said, it's called a curriculum. And I said, oh, please. Please, if you can't add 1 + 1, what kind of job can you get? I mean, it's just a basic math. So my point is that even sometimes when you're surrounded with people who are in the field, sometimes a fresh pair of eyes or just somebody else, it can bring miracles. And this was an example.
I love how he spoke life into Michael in that moment, and just saw him. I mean, that's a beautiful moment, something out of a movie, like you said. I want to thank Nadia for calling in. That was a great question. Tell us, Dr. Lisa, what would you want to tell your younger self about parenting Michael? I mean, we have a lot of parents tuning in right now with younger kids who, you've lived this journey. And I imagine there's so much that you look back and would want to tell your younger self as mom. What would your words of wisdom be to your younger self?
Well, my words of wisdom would definitely be to try to take care of myself a little bit better. And that goes for all parents. I mean, I think that sometimes we push and push and push and we don't take care of ourselves. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we're not good for anybody. And if we're in a marriage, we have to give time to the marriage as well. Luckily, I'm still married, but I can't tell you that this was not a challenge to a marriage, because you're giving and giving and you barely have anything left to give. So to my younger self, I would say ask for help from those around. I don't think I asked for help from those around. And ask and given them specific ways to help, not just ask for help and say, what can you do, Mom? Could you come on Thursday and just sit with Mike and read? What can you do, Dina? You love to dance. Could you come on Saturday morning for like an hour and play some music and dance. I think giving those around you, because they want to help, and they don't want to see you. They can see that you're kind of exhausted, and you're getting to like a critical point. I know my dad was very worried about me. He passed away 3 years ago, and I know that he would have loved to have seen the joy and the sense of peace that I finally have at this point. So
it's incredible.
That's such great
Great
wisdom
feedback.
too. Yeah, great wisdom to share with all of us. I mean, in general. I mean, I think that all of us look back at our life and think, what would what we want to tell our younger selves, and the things that we were stressed about or worried about, and sometimes seem not as big as they were, but also the opportunities of those trials and those scars that we have from the mistakes that we may have made, or things that we wish we would have done, can kind of remind us about things that we can give and impart on other people so that they avoid the same areas that we kind of struggled with. We are speaking with Dr. Lisa Liberatore. She's just an amazing woman of faith in the Orthodox Church. Her son, Michael, who's on the autism spectrum, is just an extraordinary man. And I love what they're doing. We've dedicated the show because April is Autism Awareness Month. And so if you've got a question, or maybe you have a child that's struggling with autism, or maybe like our caller earlier, Nadia, that you know someone that is struggling with it, and you just would like some guidance on that, feel free. This is your time. Call us. You can call us at 1-855-237-2346, or email us a question at ask@ancientfaith.com. That's ask@ancientfaith.com. Lisa, as you were talking earlier, and I loved, how we were talking about that middle school child and with the caller, but I mean, guide us a little bit on how your approach was with Michael through all of his formative years, even to the present, and how you've had to kind of perhaps adjust it, like most parents do. We're adjusting throughout the different seasons of their as they're growing. How different that is for you with a child that has the autism.
Well, I mean, Michael was diagnosed a little over 2 years of age. I didn't realize that he was autistic. I thought he had speech delay, and I wasn't too worried about that because my other son also did not speak until 2, and then just full sentences started coming out. So I thought that was, so anyway, when he was diagnosed, I was in shock. I didn't really, I'm a physician, and I had never actually had a patient on the autism spectrum. I did not have any class on autism, no lectures. So I really had no reference, and I was very scared. We had a confirmation diagnosis, and the doctor made the diagnosis, and that's when Dimitri heard it for the first time. And then we went into into a sort of attack mode. Okay, so what do you do? Who do you get? And I realized that the allied health professionals, the speech pathologists, the occupational therapists, the behavioralists, those disciplines, which I didn't really have a lot of experience with, again, turned out to be like the true heroes and the ones who helped me the most understand why Michael had all these sort of sensory issues, why he only wanted to eat white food like yogurt and bread and pasta. I started to, because I really did not want to go towards prescription medication, especially in that young age, I looked for other things, and found an organization called Defeat Autism Now, Dan, at the time.
Lisa, I'm just going to interrupt you just for a second. You just kind of are breaking in and out real quick. I'm so sorry. I just wanted to make sure that our audience can hear you. If you can, I don't know if it just started about a few moments ago, so maybe we can try that again to share with us what you were sharing. Are you there?
Oh, what happened?
No.
Lisa, are you there?
Hello? Yes?
Yes. Okay, yes.
Is that now?
Sounds better.
Yes.
Okay.
So you were sharing with us about...
I was going to say that we started to look at other things that could help Michael, and we realized that diet did make a big difference. So avoiding dairy and avoiding gluten, avoiding excess sugar in his diet really made a difference. First of all, in his sleep, and also there is definitely many people on the spectrum who have GI issues, and if you can't communicate that, it will come out as agitation. So we realized that about the age of 4. So then his diet became something that we knew we could control, we could help, by at least that was something that was tangible that we could do. And then it was really about finding the right kind of support people, or the people that could work with Michael. And it was definitely a trial and error until you find those. I mean, they're definitely the angels. Any parent who has an autistic child knows who those angels are in their life. And you just can't imagine life without them. And there's nothing that we, there's no way to thank them enough. So we had a wonderful young teacher named Sarah, and Sarah was only 20 years at the time, and she was one of Michael's first teachers. And she actually was the one who I went to and I said, again, he's not reading. Again, the school had a certain way of teaching, a certain curriculum, and if you didn't learn that way, I guess you can't read. And she said, I'm going to try this program called the Wilson's program, which is sounding out words like phonetically, because Michael knows his alphabet, and he probably could, this might work. And again, within a very short amount of time, he was reading. He was sounding out the words and reading, and it sort of could, he got it. Hat, at. And then, so that was one of my first inklings to realize that we need to challenge when something's not working. Just challenge it. Just figure out another way. See if there's another way. I think that was my first experience of that. The second thing was church. I mean, my husband and I belong to the Greek Orthodox Church. I was raised Catholic, but I converted, became charismated when we had Michael, because I really wanted to receive communion together, and that was very important to me. And Michael, was disruptive in church, and I wanted to bring him out of church and take turns
Lisa,
with Dimitri.
if you don't mind, I'm just going to pause because we actually have a caller that's called in about this specific topic. So I do want to welcome Sarah to Live with the Louhs. Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, Father Nicholas and Dr. Roxanne.
Hi.
And Dr.
Welcome.
Lisa.
Yes.
Hi. It's so good to hear your voices. I'm a big fan. I have a question about this. First of all, I loved, Dr. Lisa, hearing you talk about your son and everything, because I have an education background. So I have worked with a lot of children. I worked at a school that specialized in working with getting children with autism into the gen ed classroom. And it was a really wonderful experience. And I love it because I can tell, Dr. Lisa, that you are your son's biggest advocate, which is so important. But my question is, it is exactly that. Like, how can we help our children with autism? Not that I don't have one, but I have a child. There is a child in my parish who does have autism. How do we help them in the liturgy, since it is such a long endeavor for them to, go through and kind of be patient and quiet? So I'd love to hear.
Right. Well, I first of all, I think that the priest himself has to set the tone for the congregation. So when Michael was sort of making some noise, and I was, quickly trying to make him leave, Father Alex, who, Father Louh and Roxanne know well, Dr. Roxanne know well, he said, "You stay right there." He said, "I don't have any problem with children crying or doing anything in church. The children are the future, and I love to see young families." And, to me, that was, I was in shock. And Michael did many funny things in church that I apologized for. And he said, Lisa, you don't apologize for a child, running to the church, because he'd like run down the aisle to the middle of church. So, the whole congregation really got to know Michael. And I think once I relaxed, and everybody relaxed, it really was not that big a deal. It's more, I think we make a bigger deal out of a lot of these situations. So that's one thing. And the second thing I think is the altar boys themselves. Michael really wanted to be an altar boy. He clearly showed that. His brother was an altar boy. And Father Alex asked Alexander, my older son, who's 1 year older than Mike, if he would help Mike. And the other altar boys also sort of took him under his wing. So I think I don't think that happens very much. And I think that was an amazing experience for Michael. He was probably the only altar boy that would be smiling, with a big smile up there. The other boys looked like they were, kind of,
Tired.
Yeah, just, boys,
Yes,
boys
exactly.
are getting in trouble. And he knows he knows the whole liturgy. He knows the the priest part. He knows it. He knows in Greek. He knows it in English. I mean, it's amazing, the retention. And that's a place that he feels good about himself. He knows he's special. He's up there, he's up there with Father Alex and Father Constantine.
Right.
So I think that is tremendous opportunity.
Sarah, does that kind of help you with what you're, maybe just to kind of build on what Dr. Lisa was sharing, is maybe just having a meeting with your parish priest and maybe encouraging, he may already be doing this, so I don't want to make any presumptions, but just having him maybe listen to this particular show and maybe just even communicating directly with Dr. Lisa to see how they're doing it in their parish. I mean, what they're doing, I think, is truly up in New York, in the Hamptons, is probably, I think, the model for the entire Orthodox world, I would argue. The way that they're handling everything, it just seems to be so beautiful. That's one of the reasons why we wanted Dr. Lisa on the show. But does that help you as far as what she was sharing, or any follow-up questions or comments?
Yeah. I have just one little follow-up question. You kind of answered it, Father Nicholas, but my husband is actually the priest of our parish, so it's easy for me to approach him on this subject.
Yeah, that helps a
but
lot.
if you are, if you're not the presbytera, what is the best way to approach your priest, your parish priest, about this particular thing?
Lisa, maybe, go. I'd like for you to start it out, and
I was going to add two more little things that helped me. I made a little social storybook about the liturgy. So I think taking a lot of pictures, and then making a little, a little booklet, I found very helpful. Like, we go to church, we light a candle first, and we do our, so he liked reading the book, and he liked seeing pictures of himself. So I think that was very, very helpful, and got a lot of wear out of that little book. And the second thing is, I think that the liturgy is very long. And so what helped me was to sort of make little circles, like little happy faces. And as the liturgy was going on, I just kind of make a little happy face to show Michael more of a timing, like, when are we almost at communion? Because he always looked forward to communion. So it would sort of give him a time thing. I was looking through my the Holy Week book, and I still have those old little Post-its with all the little happy faces. So that's
such good information.
What great like feedback. I mean, just, even just, again, knowing what to expect. And one thing about our liturgy is, it doesn't change. So I would imagine, they are able to kind of come to know what to expect. It's not something different every time they come in, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it's really funny. When we're in church, sometimes I feel like, why don't people know when to sit and to stand? It's the same thing every week. And until I see Father Alex put his hand up and down, Michael is the first one, jumps up. He knows when to kneel. He knows, and he does it just like a fraction of a second before everybody else, to basically show people, like, wake up, people, like, this is
I love it. And kudos to you, Dr. Lisa, for sticking with it and bringing him enough to where he did adapt. I think what's important in this journey is hearing the adaptation that occurred, so you went from the anxiety of him making noise to the priest sort of setting the tone, to picture books, to smiling faces. He knew communion, he knew when to sit and stand, in this sort of beautiful journey of how he adapted to a setting that embraced him. It's a beautiful dynamic, the back and forth dynamic. And so I think anybody, with a child of autism, it's important to, bring it to the attention of the priest, and even Sunday school teachers, so, and that's the other question I have, Dr. Lisa. Did you accompany Michael to Sunday school classes, or did you drop him off? How did that work?
I tried Sunday school. It didn't really work for us. But I think because Michael really enjoys being in the liturgy, and a lot of times Sunday school students, they come like once communion is happening, they miss a lot of the liturgy. So I think that that really didn't work for us. And then now that he's an adult, it's really we'll get into that, but now he and all his friends actually come to church. And what I started to do was bring a religious education teacher on Friday to talk about what the gospel is going to be on Sunday. So they get a little more of a heads up.
It's really amazing. We'll see it in a couple of weeks when we're there. But the way that you even have the area of the coffee hour or the hospitality hour, or, just having them all there together. And I want to follow up on this. I want to take a quick break, Dr. Lisa. On the other side of this break, we have another email question that really kind of talks about how the ministries themselves and the ministry leaders specifically can better minister to those who who have autism, not only to the child or to the adult, but also to the parents. So we're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we'll talk about that. Okay, so stay right with us.
With the Louhs with Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne will be back in a moment. Give them a call at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. They would love to hear from you.
During his darkest moments on the cross, Jesus uttered 7 statements. His words offer us principles to live by, lessons of hope, peace, and comfort. I'm Dr. Roxanne Louh.
And I'm Father Nicholas Louh.
And our new book, 6 Hours, 7 Lessons, is all about how Christ's light transcends our darkness.
Christ's final words have the power to bring us into the light of his love and protection, providing wisdom and direction to follow when we face our own dark seasons. Get your copy today by going to store.ancientfaith.com. That's store.ancientfaith.com.
We're back with Live with the Louhs and Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne. Do you have a question for the Louhs? Call in now at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. Here once again is Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to Live with the Louhs. So great that you're joining us this evening. And we are in this extraordinary conversation with Dr. Lisa about autism. Autism, as many of you know, April is Autism Awareness Month, and we're just dedicating the show to this topic. It's really a continuation of last April's conversation that we had with Dr. Lisa about the extraordinary work that she is doing and her husband are doing with their son, Michael, up in New York. And Dr. Lisa, I know that we are continuing that conversation, but before we took the break, we talked a little bit about how churches and clergy specifically could better approach and better provide tools and means for the families and who have autism, as well as to be supportive. There's an email question that just came in. It says, my question is for tonight is, what are some key ideas that people of our church, including clergy, parish council members, ministry leaders, and other members of the congregation, can incorporate and provide different ways to involve those who have autism or other special needs? Dr. Lisa, what are some ways that we can do that?
Well, I'm sure that in every congregation, there probably is somebody who is knowledgeable about autism. So I think I mean, it doesn't have to be Autism Awareness Month, but certainly bringing awareness or education to the church community would be a good start, because there is so much misinformation and sometimes shame and stigma associated with autism. Some of the older generation, actually thinks that, it's related, it's a cause for, there was some sin involved that caused a problem. I mean, there's a lot of ideas that are, shocking to maybe some of us who are younger, or I think that that has to be addressed, right? I think, especially, and I see that when I talk to people from Greece or other countries, it's really kind of shocking, the stigma, as if somebody did something wrong and that's why this happened. Right. So I think educating people that this is a continuum of the human experience. Of course, autism is labeled a disorder or disability, and a lot of that is to get services for the individuals who need it. But it doesn't define the person. So the person has challenge, but it doesn't talk about all the beautiful aspects of who they are. And I think that we want the congregation to not be afraid to see the beauty and the potential. And I think some of the ways that I've seen that in practice, one little example is this year we have an older group called Kali Parea, the Good Friends, and they meet once a month, and they have like a lunch together, and they were going to do a Friendsgiving. And I went up to the ringleader, Sally, and I said, Sally, I see you're doing a Friendsgiving. We do a Friendsgiving, our group, our autism group. And she said, okay. And I said, maybe we could just do it together. And she goes, what do you mean? And I said, we just do it on the same day and we do it together. And she looked so nervous. And I said, it's going to be great. I mean, I said, we'll make some of the dishes, and, as well, we'll bring some dishes, we'll make some dishes. It'll be wonderful. Anyway, she really took ownership of it. And she basically was the spokesperson for the other group, the other members of the group. It turned out to be one of the most beautiful events. I have photos of it. I mean, over 100 people attended. It's usually like 15 people. Everybody, she was like, so, she just was glowing, over it. And the fact that she was instrumental in putting, helping to put this together. It was like a love fest. And so I think that really pivoted. There was like a pivot almost in that, after that, this happened this past Thanksgiving.
I love that you led with that, Dr. Lisa, the ownership of integration, like you kind of took it on, like, hey, let's do this. Hey, it's going to be fine, and you really led, because I think you hit the nail on the head when you said people are afraid, they're unsure, and we are afraid of things we don't know. Right. And this is true. So we back away from things we just don't understand. To avoid, because we were afraid, not because there is a threat, but because we're just afraid of things we don't understand. And once you integrate and took ownership and you get to be in the space with someone, you approach who they are, suddenly you realize, oh, I know how to do this now, and it was beautiful. And in fact, as you said, she was glowing. And I mean, so there's something really beautiful about that. And I think so often, as parents, we're so afraid of perception, or afraid of, if my kid, disturbs something, whether they have autism or don't have autism, and we tend to kind of shy away from things. But I really love the confidence you had in sort of taking ownership of just drawing Michael in, drawing, this group and this group together. And what you saw, what you witnessed, was just the Holy Spirit, working in that, what you did. That's just beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, it really, really, really was. And she's, now when they're in church, now when they go to church, I mean, you'll see our guys will come in and they'll give her a big hi, hi, Sally, and she just has,
her chest is all pumped up because she knows that, she was responsible for kind of leading that initiative. So
it's just beautiful.
Dr. Lisa, I know that I do want to just ask you, I know obviously you and your extraordinary husband, Dimitri, so well in our meetings together. But I think it'd be so powerful. I mean, we're spending a great deal of time talking about Michael, as we should. I mean, he's just an amazing young man on so many levels. But I do want to talk a little bit about your marriage and how important, some helpful advice for the couples that are just finding out maybe recently that their child has autism, and maybe there's just this shock that, like you were mentioning earlier. What words of wisdom would you give them if they're just finding out, or how to navigate their own marriage through this process as well?
Well, I think that's so specific, right, to every couple. So I don't know if I have all the answers to that. But I found that what was tiring to me was managing Michael's sort of anxiety in different situations and managing Dimitri's anxiety in situations. And I finally realized that I was constantly managing everybody, and that was really exhausting. And I needed Dimitri to kind of check in with his own anxiety and say, what I noticed with Michael, and I see other families say the same thing, they are so sensitive to anxiety around them. So if they're around calm people, they're more calm. If they're around anxious people, you see increased agitation and anxiety. And I think that was, I think that Dimitri unintentionally, he's just wired that way. We're wired the way we're wired. But he had to kind of be aware, oh, wow, I'm a little bit, I need to go for a walk. I need to go for a run. I need to get myself calm, and then I'm going to be around Mike, and then that's going to be better. And if that's better, if Michael's better, we're all better. We're all better. Alexander's better. So I think family dynamics, what I see is that my other son, Alexander, is more similar to me. I think we're a little more low key, and Michael and Dimitri are a little more higher strung. And just being aware of that, just being aware of how everybody is and how everybody kind of presents themselves, I think was something I know.
Yeah. That started with you noticing what you were holding and then exploring that, being willing to explore that. And I think that's, maybe the takeaway that I hear you saying for couples is notice, what you're reacting to, what you're managing, what you're holding, and where that might be coming from, and then communicate about it. Sounds like you then took the step of saying, hey, I've noticed, and why don't we try, right? And of course, he received it well, which is a beautiful dynamic. Well, what would you say that you've learned, about autism, through Michael? I mean, what would you say that you've learned?
I think what I've learned is that Michael is, I think Michael really teaches us that there's this unconditional love, and that, I think love is probably, when we call our company Love Michael, and love is probably the most important thing that all of us need, and to be loved and to be accepted for who we are, and once somebody feels that, there's just this general sense of feeling okay, with how everything is going to be. And I think nothing else is more important. So
I love that. I think that's the idea that, even in my brief experiences with Michael, I think that's one of the things that you just see so prevalently is really that joy that really not just he, but the entire group. I mean, maybe you could talk a little bit, Dr. Lisa, about, what coffee hour looks like for Michael and his friends.
Well, coffee hour, first of all, everybody's really hungry. So coffee hour is, I have to actually put a table, reserve a table a little bit aside. And we have a little bit of food at our table because actually most of coffee hour is filled with donuts and bagels and kind of stuff that's not not great for them, honestly. Mm-hmm. So we prepare with some healthier options. I was going to say some healthier options, really for all of us. With protein, some protein, not so much carbs, etc. Mm-hmm. But it's very joyful. I mean, it's very joyful. They look forward to seeing and talking to people who are there, because obviously you have to be quiet for a long time. A lot of the parishioners, not a lot of the parishioners, but several of the parishioners actually volunteer to teach. So they're they work with the guys and the ladies in the kitchen, cooking. They actually started a class called Global Cuisine. So one of our parishioners is a retired special ed teacher, and she does a lesson every week on a different country, and they learn about the country, they learn about the food. So they just, it's like, they look forward to seeing all the members of the church. It's very lively.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask, I know we've just got a few more minutes left of the show, but I definitely want to talk about the conference that you guys are hosting in September. So let's spend some time talking about this. I love the video, by the way, that you shared with us. But let's talk a little bit about that, Lisa.
So, in the past 4 years, U.S. Autism Homes was a nonprofit that we started focusing on the residential model, and it is an innovative residential model. So it's not a certified group home. It's a new idea, new concept, and the concept is if you can align with a faith-based supportive community in an interdenominational way, and our church, the Dormition of the Virgin Mary, is the first faith-based partner to kind of show how to do this. And they can be an anchor to a group of homes within a close vicinity, so no more than like a half a mile from each other. And they can be an additional circle of support and comfort for parents so that they know that there'll be support beyond their lifetime. Because that's really what keeps parents up at night, is what's going to happen when I'm no longer around. And hopefully churches and synagogues and other houses of worship will be around for many generations. And so our model is to align with a faith-based supportive community in an interdenominational way. And we have already 4 homes, 4 homes for 9 men and 2 women. Each Beautiful. Of the homes has a live-in caregiver. And we have about 15 full-time staff that come, for the day in different shifts. And so we don't have it all figured out, but we have enough figured out that it's really important to share what we've learned. That's what we feel. And I'm inundated with emails, and it's very hard to help. I feel like this is the best way to help, is to have a conference. And so we have a link to pre-register. It's called lovemichaelconference.org. So it's pretty easy to remember. And we hope to have about 50 families for our first conference, September 9th, this September, and at the church, at the Greek Orthodox Church. And
this is for anyone that wants to come to this?
Yes.
So again, the dates are
September 9th.
September 9th. It's a one-day conference from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we're going to present the key components of what we found to be important in the model. And our goal is to help inspire somebody else to replicate in their own community and be a resource for them, with ongoing calls, Zoom calls, et cetera, et cetera. But I feel like by coming to see it, it's a feeling that you're going to get, and it's really hard to show that other than coming to see it. So,
and the website again, Dr. Lisa, was Love Michael Conference.
Conference.org.
Love Michael Conference.
L-U-V.
Yes, L-U-V. I was just going to say.
Michael, conference.org. O-R-G.
And this is held at the Dormition of the Virgin Mary Greek Orthodox Parish in the Hamptons in New York.
Southampton, New York. Mm-hmm. Yep.
As we've only got a few moments left, I do want to just to kind of ask you, and I know it may be a little bit difficult, but I know we've kind of talked about this really throughout the show, but, really, what are some ways that people that are listening tonight that are just listening because they're just faithful friends of the Live with the Louhs show, but how can they help? I mean, what are some ways practically that they can do to help, not whether it be in their parish, their faith tradition, or also just in general? I think it would be great to end with.
To help families of autistic children in general. Well, definitely start with that would be wonderful to start with the parish, because I truly believe this has been such a blessing, and it's a blessed project, and I feel this will definitely happen for other people if they just take that first step. So I believe start in your parish. Because everything is possible when you believe in Jesus and God. So I very much believe that. And I think, a smile, making somebody feel more relaxed, that they're not getting a judgmental look.
I think that's so important.
Let's underscore that.
I had a parishioner one time that had a child who was autistic, and really was felt in previous parishes that she had felt that people were looking at her when her child would just have a random, at times scream throughout the service, and it just made her uncomfortable. And she ended up leaving the church, and she said she was commenting on how she felt comfortable in our parish, but I just wonder how many times that happens in communities, not only in churches, but just in general, at the grocery store, at places that where there's a group of people there. And I love the fact that you're just simply talking about, just remember how we look at people and how our eyes are really, it's the way that we communicate in a very nonverbal way.
Yes. And our children respond to gentleness. They respond to a soft voice. They respond to not being too aggressive when you're trying to help. Just wait and hear how you can be helpful, because sometimes people think they're being helpful, and they're actually, creating more anxiety. So how I can be helpful, and talk softly, and a smile. A smile, it goes a long way.
I think that's so great. Dr. Lisa, the websites that they can find out more information about, I know we talked about Love Michael Conference, but what are some other websites that they can find out more about what Love Michael is, the actual...
Maybe how to reach you as well, Dr. Lisa.
Oh, well, the best way to reach me is through my email, Lisa, Lisa, at lovemichael.org, LUVmichael.org. And I know I've spoken to many people that way. And then, of course, the Love Michael website. But I think those two ways are...
That'd be great. I love that. Lisa, as always, I know we're going to be up there in a couple of weeks doing a marriage conference with your parish and the local parishes as well, and the national archons as well. But we're such big fans of what you and Dimitri are doing, and obviously the center of attention for us is Michael, and how extraordinary he is, and what you all have done. I think really is a model. And I know that many people tell you that, but just from someone that is in the priesthood, obviously, and seeing that kind of ministry, and that's something that's such important to us in our fields as well. Just great job. I mean, thank God that God is really utilizing your gifts to do some great work. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm big fans of you guys, so
well,
be good to see you.
Great to come down and see your parish. I told you that I would love to come down there and
well, when you come down, we're going to set up a time for you to address our community and really just have an opportunity, because I think your experience as a mom just will be so powerful for our parishioners to listen to and hear. But
Great.
Thank you, Lisa. And please give our love to Dimitri and to Michael and to the family. Just give them all our regards.
Yes.
And to all of you for joining us on tonight's show. We're so grateful that you're with us and that you take the time to be with us. If this show means, if it impacted you, do us a favor. There's a link on our Facebook page that has this show. do us a favor and share it, because chances are you probably know someone that is struggling with a child who has autism. Maybe some of the answers that Lisa gave would be very beneficial for them. And as always, with all of our shows and all of our ministries, a very simple thing to do is just to simply click the share button so that we can cast the net as far as we can and share Christ's light with everyone. Join us next Tuesday for a brand new Live with the Louhs, my friends. And as always, God bless you and stay strong in your walk of faith.
Father Nick and Dr. Roxanne are the authors of the book Renewing You, a priest, a psychologist, and a plan, which can be purchased at store.ancientfaith.com. Their daily inspirational messages can be found at thelouhs.com/subscribe. Be sure also to search for The Louhs on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Live with the Louhs is a listener-supported presentation of Ancient Faith Radio.